Hi, folks. This is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. Well, this time of the year, the fishing is I think it's the very best of the whole year. And it's the best for almost every species. But if you're not out on the water fishing more often than just once, you don't really get a chance or have the ability to really find those fish the same. And remember, they may be here today and tomorrow they may have moved another place. That's one of the big things about fishing right now is there's a lot of change happening, more so on a daily basis than any other time in the year. And so, I can give you a report that I talked to my buddy Mike Bean, and they've been catching walleye after walleye out in the St. Lawrence River. And there's other people that are doing the same. But those fish are constantly moving, and there's certain areas where we almost call it a walleye nursery. Brandy Brook is like that. You can go there, and this time of the year, usually you can catch walleyes, but they tend to be small, below the legal limit. And remember another thing, that when you're fishing in any of the tributaries or in the St. Lawrence River, if you're fishing the tributary that goes up from the St. Lawrence before the first impoundment, then the St. Lawrence River regulations apply and not the state's regulations. The rest of the state, if you catch a walleye 15 inches long, you can keep it. Not in the Great Lakes water system and not in this area of the Oswegatchie, the Grass, the Racket. If it's before a barrier, then they've got to be 18 inches long. It's something to remember. The other thing that I wanted to stress here too is, and we've talked about it, there's bass every place right now, and it's almost impossible not to catch them. But a lot of people, and I've even heard it when I recently went to Watertown. I went in runnings there. There was something that I specifically was looking for. And I listened to other people talking, and the one guy says, yeah, these are really good. And he says, but he says, especially for bass right now. And the other guy goes, yeah, but don't forget, the season isn't here yet. And the other guy says, oh, yeah, but you can catch them and throw them back. Well, you can't. You can't, not legally. But I think a lot of people don't really realize that. I think sometimes it's not out of breaking the law intentionally or ignoring the law. I think a lot of times people just don't know. The regulations there's so many different regulations in our state, and it's really difficult to keep up with them if you don't have the guide and are looking at it constantly. But I find this really interesting, that right now there's an awful lot of people that are fishing illegally, and they may not be aware of it. Then I also think a lot of people are aware of it, and they say to heck with it. And they're doing whatever brings them joy, and that is they're fishing for bass. I see bass boats out on the St. Lawrence River, and I know darn well, because those boats are designed specifically for people that are going after bass. And I know they can tell you, no, we're fishing walleye or we're doing this, but if you're fishing back in the bays and along the shoreline, I know a lot of bass are being targeted. And I'm not going to defend it, nor I'm not going to really judge it, because I think there's an awful lot we don't know. And even the biologists are learning about bass behavior that they really weren't aware of before. And one of them is, I've talked to you about it, that we recently found out from studies the DEC and some of the colleges had made, that bass haven't even begun to spawn when we think they're finished with spawning. I mean, a lot of them, 80% of the bass haven't spawned in the St. Lawrence River as of June 15th when we open season. So I guess, we have to realize that seasons are designated to protect the fish when they're most vulnerable, which is the period of time when they're spawning. That's when they're most vulnerable, that they ignore everything else just to protect the progeny or whatever so that they can continue to survive. And we set laws to protect them. But some of our laws may be not as effective as we might think, because maybe those bass are not going to be harmed as much at that time because they're not on their beds. They haven't begun that yet. Something to think about. There's always new things to learn and new things to, I guess, talk about when it comes to fishing. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.